Howdy, y'all. It's Curious Raven. Today is the first day of Advent, and it will be featuring the creepy fox. I hope y'all enjoy this collection of haunted stories. Number 1. Hello, everybody. I'm fairly new to the Reddit. I came across this on Google while trying to find ways to get rid of this entity in my new apartment. It is an inside apartment with 3 floors. We just moved into our new apartment November 1st of this year. We have a 3-year-old boy, and long story short, the second week of us staying here, my son walked outside at 3 a.m. all by himself. He knows how to open and unlock the apartment front door, but what creeped us out is how he was able to go outside. It's a fairly heavy push door. It was around 4 a.m., and he was walking everywhere in the complex. Luckily, a good neighbor called, and the cops had brought him back to us safely. The person that called the cops also took videos of my son playing outside in the rain all by himself with no shoes on. The following days after that, we put extra locks on the front door so he wouldn't leave again. He randomly gets up, still sleeping, and tries to leave. We try asking him who he's with or who helps him open the heavy doors going outside the complex, and he stays completely silent. It has been like this every night. Some nights before bed, we share a room with him. He's just sitting on the edge of the bed, just staring at something. When we ask him what he's looking at, he doesn't say anything. Mind you, he is a very vocal 3-year-old, so that's unusual for him not to talk. Sometimes he'll just say, "I'm scared, there's a monster." My son is not the type to really be scared of monsters or ghosts, since we don't show him any scary movies or things like that. The past few weeks have been very rough. Something is bothering him in his sleep, to the point every night he screams and cries, still while sleeping, saying no, no, no. I try to be brave for him, but when his dad and him are both sleeping, and I stay up to make sure he's okay throughout the night, I feel a presence. I try to ignore it, but I feel it touching my hair, tugging my fingertips and feet, and sometimes even whispers when I try going to sleep. I don't think the spirit is evil, but it's causing discomfort to my son, and he can never get a good night's rest. If anybody can please help suggest what I should do, any advice is appreciated. I'm desperate, tired, and yes, truly scared. Number 2. I don't fully believe in ghosts, but if there is anything that's going to convince me, it's what happened to me earlier this year. Me and my family had plans to fly to Arizona and stay with my brother, who we haven't seen in a while. I stayed in a room downstairs while they stayed in the one upstairs. After a few days there, they started complaining of weird noises in the room, but ended up catching a flight home early while I stayed. I ended up taking their room because it was bigger. My first night in the room was my last. It was nighttime, and I was ready for bed. I had just laid down and had my eyes closed. After about a minute of laying there, not even close to sleep, I saw a large flash of light, like someone shined a flashlight on my eyelids. And then the loudest bang I've ever heard. It was so loud my ears started ringing. Scared shitless, I got up and ran downstairs to the living room. I turned on all the lights, including the TV, trying to figure out what just had happened. About 3 minutes later, the house alarm starts blaring, but the door to the garage is open. That woke up my brother, who got up and turned off the alarm. We didn't find anything at all. Let's just say I didn't get a minute of sleep that night. The next day, we met up with some friends for lunch, and I tell them the story of what happened. One of them asked me if I knew the story about that house before he bought it. I said no. They said there was a family living there before Your brother bought it. The kid and father had a big argument that led the kid to shoot his dad while he was asleep in bed. Shortly afterwards, the kid ran to the garage and shot himself, committed suicide. That completely lined up what I experienced the night before. If ghosts are real, that entire experience has me convinced. Number 3. Hey Reddit, I've been mulling over a particular childhood experience and wanted to see if anyone else can relate. As a kid, I had intensely vivid dreams, and I always struggled with falling asleep alone, a challenge that lingers to this day. Between ages 8 and 10, I encountered something strange. In the dead of night, I'd wake up to find several misty figures at the foot of my bed. They seemed to be engaged in conversation about me. Frustratingly, I couldn't make out their words. It used to terrify me. After multiple occurrences, I decided to address them one night. I told them it was okay to watch over as I slept, but I prefer not to see them. Strangely, I never saw them again after that night. Has anyone else had a similar experience or encountered mysterious visitors during childhood? Would love to hear your stories and thoughts. Number 4. This happened about 8 years ago. This was in a 5-bedroom house I owned, where I lived with my wife and parents-in-law when they visited. This was not my only encounter in this house. At around 7 to 7:30 p.m., I was sitting on the sofa in the living room, getting ready to watch TV with my wife, who was showering. I could see into the bedroom from where I was sitting. The shower was in an ensuite, off to the left, out of sight. I was getting bored sitting there, so I glanced over to the bedroom to see if my wife had come out of the shower yet. I saw what I thought was her walk across the bedroom from left to right. I went into the bedroom to ask her to hurry up, and the shower door was closed and she was still in there. I opened the door and asked if she had come out, and she said she hadn't. There was literally nowhere a person could have gone, but I saw someone clear as day walk across the room and out of sight. I only saw from behind, but it looked to me like someone in white clothes with long brown hair. Number 5. I woke up today, and my mother spoke to me about someone in my past reaching out to her through text. I went to sleep, and when I woke up, I asked her about it again, only for her to say she's busy. Both times, it seems like it was right outside my door. When I actually called my mom, she was completely confused and said she'd been gone from the house since early in the morning. Just 30 minutes ago, I was walking my dog when I heard what sounded like a young person screaming for their lives across the pond. I shouted out and asked if they were okay. And about 1 minute later, of me standing there trying to see if I could discern what was happening, I heard a motorcycle start. It stayed parked for about a minute before I heard it start driving into my direction, where I saw it stop at the end of the street I was in. Whoever it was just watched me for about 10 seconds before I felt very strange and got the fuck out of there. I feel like I'm going crazy, except for the fact that this morning my cat reacted to the voice outside the door. This shit is weird, man. I went from 3 weird happenings in my life to 2 in one day. Number 6. I usually don't post something like this, but I would need to, so that I can remember the description and so that you guys get a good story. Last night I ended up waking up in the middle of the night. I turned over and looked towards my doorway and saw a figure standing taller than my door, and it seemed like the head was mixed together with some sort of fat. To be honest, it looked really weird. Then I blinked and it was gone. I was too tired and at the time to grab the limited equipment I had found. But I got up in the morning having a massive headache, nasal congestion, and feeling woozy. I had a meeting at 9 a.m. local time, and I got better as soon as I left my apartment into the meeting. When I got back, it started back up. So I did a method that I decided was the best option. The grasp and pull method. Basically, grasping is yes and pulling is no. I got all the answers I needed when it being a shadow figure and that it came from my workplace as a result of having negative energy yesterday at work. It, however, never answered whether it was good or bad. And by the way, I'm having my sister bring me some sage to cleanse.
I want to start this by saying that I've been curious about the paranormal for as long as I can remember. I wouldn't say I'm a skeptic by any means, but I don't fully believe in ghosts. I have always had an extremely active imagination, so this can be one explanation for these experiences, but they were just too weird, and they stuck out enough for me to remember them clearly all these years later. Event number 1. My grandmother had recently moved into a new apartment building, and my dad, uncle, and myself helped her move a week or so prior. I was 6 to 7 years old at the time, so I helped as much as I could. Now, this was in the late 90s. This was before I was even aware of ghosts and what they were. This was also before a time when you'd see all those paranormal shows on TV, so this is what makes me feel like this was legit. My mom and I were visiting her before I went to a friend's birthday party. This would have been in May too, so it's very unlikely Halloween would have had anything to do with this. I had wandered off while my grandmother and mom were talking, and I went down the hall to a stairwell that led to the outside of the building. She was on the second floor, and this would have taken you outside to the parking lot in front of the building. I was at the top of the stairs, and I saw a man in a brown suit with a bowler hat on walking in. He didn't say anything to me, but I could see he was holding the door open for me, as if he was waiting for me to walk down the stairs. Now, I don't remember walking down the stairs, but the next thing I do remember is being at the bottom of those stairs with a bloody nose and the glass on the door being broken. I had walked face first into the door. My mom and grandmother were looking for me, and they ended up finding me in that condition. I tried to explain to them what had happened, but they just got mad at me for wandering off. And rightfully so. I mean, I broke a door with my face. Event number 2. This occurred maybe a year later. I was at my house this time. My parents were out for the evening, so I had a babysitter watching me. I was in bed getting ready to go to sleep, and I hear a noise at my door. I looked from my bed, and I could see the outline of a man standing there in the doorway. It was all black, but I could tell it was a man in a suit, and he had the outline of what would have been a similar hat. This freaked me out, as the babysitter was a teenage girl, and there wasn't a man in the house at the time. Just the two of us were there. I pulled the covers over my head because I was super freaked out. I ended up going to sleep anyway though, so I'm not sure what happened once I pulled the covers over my head, but I guess whatever it was went away. I'm convinced whatever I saw was the same thing and that it followed me to my house. I didn't notice anything odd in between those two occurrences, and I haven't seen or felt anything since. But these were the only times I've ever legitimately felt that I've seen something paranormal. One thing I should note is my grandfather died over 20 years before I was born, and I never met him. My dad was 7 when he passed away, so he barely knew him too. My dad's side of the family is much older than my mom's, so I've been to a lot of funerals for his aunts and uncles over the years. At the wakes, there'd be slideshows of pictures, and there'd be pictures of all the family, including my grandfather. The pictures were all taken in the 1960s or earlier, so lots of the ones he's in aren't in color, but the ones he's in, he's wearing a suit. It's not black because it appears lighter in the pictures. It might be tan or even a light brown, just like the guy I saw in the first event. There weren't any pictures with him wearing a similar style hat though. If I did legitimately see these things, and they weren't just imagined up by me, I'd like to think it was my grandfather checking in on me. It makes sense, because I would have been around the same age as my dad when he passed away. TLDR, kid with overactive imagination might have seen his dead grandfather in 2 separate locations.
Alright, I want to say thank you to the Creepy Fox for joining us this video. Please go over and like his page. I will link his channel down below. Stay tuned for day number 2, and every day will be a surprise. I will not give it away of who will be featured on the channel tomorrow. I love y'all so much. And please stay safe. And remember, it's scary out there. Please like and subscribe.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross